What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rant Network, a podcast hosted by myself, Stuart Briscoe, and David Solomon, where we bring you unfiltered, uncensored conversation on a wide range of topics. Our podcast is dedicated to giving you a platform to express your opinion, share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas, and hear from a variety of perspectives and honest opinions. Join us as we dive into the latest, news, pop culture, politics, and so much more. From rants about absurdity of modern life to discuss about the deeper issues affecting our society, we got you covered. Sit back, relax, and join us on a journey of discovery and exploration. It's time to join the Rant Network. David, love the intro.
Hey, listen, welcome back, boss.
It's nice to be back in one piece, no broken bones. But, speaking of broken bones, we've been breaking the back of Whoppi Goldberg from The View for about 2 years now with her absurdity or stupidity and her just blatant disregard for any normalcy whatsoever. So, I just want to be fair that for the first time in a long time, we're actually going to give praise to the Goldberg. What do you think?
Well, let's start from saying why. And one of the fascinating things is if you listen to some people on the left, some liberals, some so-called progressives, whatever, the Bill Maher's of this world, for example, they're worried. They're very concerned that the hard left, the AOC-driven socialism, Bernie Sanders type of socialism, this woke mentality that you're seeing, all over in universities and in politics and whatever, has really gone too far. Now, in history, governments have always tried to censor books. Education is one of those things that scares autocratic governments. It scares people who want to control minds and people's thoughts. And you've heard of book burning over generations. Well, there's a new form of book burning right now, and that is called re-editing. That's what they're calling it, re-editing. And if you are a fan, like I am, of Ian Fleming, who did the James Bond series, or if you've had the pleasure of reading to your children Roald Dahl's books such as Matilda, James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, these were beloved children's stories that you've read over time. However, today's generation is grossly offended by the wording in these books and want them censored. That's right, censored. So, for example, in James and the Giant Peach, there's a character, Miss Sponge, who's no longer described as the fat one. Miss Spider's head is not black anymore, and the earthworm has given up its lovely pink skin for lovely smooth skin. So what's happened here, and it's going on in all kinds of books, is the way we used to write, the way we used to think of society, since it's now no longer accepted by the woke generation, and it's horrifically offensive, it must be rewritten, censored, edited. And Whoppi Goldberg, of all people on The View, and Stuart, your intro is perfectly spot on. Whoppi Goldberg, who we've condemned numerous times over the 2 years that we've been doing the Rant Network, for once came out with a mark saying, no, this is not the way to do it. When Mark Twain they tried to censor, all of his books because they were referring to African-American children in a certain way in the book, and they wanted to edit it, burn the books, the whole thing. Even Whoppi Goldberg said, no, it's not about editing, it's about educating and teaching. And if necessary, put a freaking disclaimer on the front of the book and says, folks, what you're about to read was written in such and such a period of time and could come back and could have a few words that might feel offensive, but considering the content, the times and whatever. Now, Stuart, I'm just going to share with you the story, and I'm going to throw the ball right at you, man. I went to go visit my son with my wife he was the costume consultant. That's a cute term for a play, 9 to 5. If you remember the Dolly Parton movie back in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Which the movie and then the new play was talking about sexual harassment in the workplace. It was a comedy. It was fun. It was ever.
Yep.
And so when we went to go see the play, in the little brochure that they gave out, there was a literally page long set of disclaimers. This contains sexual harassment. This contains sexual content, sexual innuendo, offensive language. The list went on, and at the bottom it said, and I'm sorry I'm laughing because I just have, but if you need to speak to a therapist, here's a number or an email you can contact them. And so this, we saw the play, of everything that they said, but let's be realistic. There was a list of disclaimers. So you knew what you're getting into. So do we really need to edit books, Stuart? Do we really need to do this?
Well, David, some people argue that the increased sensitivity to social justice issues has led to a form of censorship, right? Particularly when it comes to books that are seen as problematic or offensive to the woke population. For example, there have been calls to remove other books like To Kill a Mockingbird, Huckleberry Finn from school curriculums just because of their racial slurs and stereotypes. However, it is important to note that the calls for change in the way books are viewed is not necessarily censorship. It's a possibility to engage critical discussions and reevaluate the way we interpret the text, necessarily banning them outright. In fact, many most significant literary works have been subject to ongoing critical interpretations and debate. Ultimately, the relationship between woke culture and censorship is a nuisance and is ongoing conversation, right? It's important to recognize the issues. And like you said, putting a disclaimer is one way, like you put on a pack of cigarettes, like the way you put it on any drugs or medications that you take. But at the end of the day, the harmful stereotyping of the narratives of these great works of art, no different than the Mona Lisa or David that's in Italy, right? Naked, hanging with balls. I mean, there was a priest that walked around with a hammer and broke the balls off of all the statues, knocked the tits off of all the statues. It wasn't appropriate, and it was considered a destruction of the largest part of modern art.
Forgive my friend for his four-letter use of the word breasts, please.
I'm not apologizing for it at all. And I'm not being censored for it because I don't really care. I think the fact of the matter is, what percentage of the population is transgender? What percent of the population is not heterosexual? and by saying, hang on. The sensitivity is important. You got to be considerate. But to change an entire book, like Annie was a little white girl as an orphan Annie. They redid the movie, made her a black girl. Okay. They didn't do it because the best actress was a black girl, not a white girl. They did it because they wanted to rewrite the story. But I have an objection. I think they made the orphan black girl to being more racist than having little orphan Annie, little white girl.
I'm not sure. I don't agree with where you're going with this, man. I don't agree with this at all. You're confusing it a little bit because you're talking about, when they cast all these nowadays, whether it's Little Mermaid or Little Orphan Annie with African American actresses, the reality is this is what they're calling balance. It's not about rewriting a story. They didn't rewrite Annie. All they did is rebalance the type of acting. This is not it. If you would have written in the script exactly what you just said, that instead of saying Little Orphan Annie, you said Little Orphan Black, I agree with you wholeheartedly that is completely.
But they've done it in other subtle ways. James Bond has always been a male, gregarious, homogenistic,
womanizing, women are blah blah blah. But but Stuart, even the names that they used, Pussy Galore, they used
Jamie Bond,
other things that they said in there, the drinking, the smoking, whatever. Look, this was what Ian Fleming wrote in the 1950s. This is what Roald Dahl, and he died over 30 years ago. The times were different. The attitudes were different. I'm not excusing it. Believe you me, if someone said to me, hey, let's, I want to, let me sell you Mein Kampf, I'm not, that's filled with racism. I don't want to see that, But at the same time, we have to understand historical context. And you know what? What's next? Are you going to go into Shakespeare, who was as much of a racist as possible? And the reason he used racism is because it's sold better. I mean, The
Yep.
Merchant of Venice, a great example. It's laced with
Oh,
nonstop.
I'm not a half Jew, and there's a Shylock, and I know,
Yeah.
David, you're 100% right. But again, so we want to go in defense of Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, that's the whole rant is what it's about. It's like we're actually defending Whoopi Goldberg today for the first time in 2+ years for actually calling out the insanity. I mean, listen, I understand if you have a new work and you want to write a balanced script, go for it. To go and rewrite a script on the guise of your rebalancing, I think it's ridiculous. That's like redoing Fred Flintstone and making Barney or Fred a black person and Barney a white person, or the other way around. There's no, or having Fred and Wilma being a biracial couple and having Bam Bam as being gay and Pebbles as being transgender. I mean, you just can't do that to literary works of art, but that's what they're doing.
They're doing it. The Archies, for example, they've redone a Velma as a whole. They have a whole story about her, and they've completely wokeified her.
Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo, Wilma, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. But what did I say before?
Not Archie. You said Archie.
Not Archie. Scooby-Doo. You're right, 100%. Sorry, not Archie. But although apparently even the Archies, they're looking to kind of rejig.
But when we looked at Wilma when we were kids, we didn't think of her as being transgender. Didn't think of her being gay. We didn't think about her being a girl, boy. We looked at her as being a homely girl.
Yeah, but you can't. You know what's that's the problem. The problem is, and I'll tell you, I'll quote Whoopi, because this is something that I'll probably not do another time. But whatever, she goes, y'all got to stop this. Okay, just put a disclaimer that says, listen, this book was written at this time, or put out the original and what y'all have done, because kids should have the right to read how people thought so they know how to make the change. Now, I'm not, I agree with what she's saying. We don't talk to people the way they used to. We don't deal with people the way they used to.
Listen, if you're going to put the disclaimer on something like that, Whoopi needs to advance her statement. Richard Pryor and what do we got? What's his name here? Does all those movies.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy. They should put a disclaimer out there before all of their broadcasts, just the same as they want to change it. And I love both these guys. They're some of the greatest comics of our generation.
100%.
Yet, they can say what they want, but if you try and say it, you're going to get massacred. Same disclaimer's got to go for everyone.
Look, we're seeing this in Dr. Seuss books. We're seeing this in a lot of other places where people are just trying to rewrite history. And frankly, it's not it. What it is, and I agree, these disclaimers, unfortunately, or fortunately, call it what you want. We're more advanced, less advanced. I have no idea. Well, I know that we don't talk to women the way, you see this in the James Bond movie. We don't do those type of things like that. I get it. However, this is a reflection of the era, and it's not to be taken. And again, literary works, which are fiction, take it for what it is, folks. We're not talking about the Bible. We're not talking about, we're not
David, but I don't hear about calling censorship on Woodstock. If it was a liberal cause, I'm trying to give you another side.
But don't give them ideas, because the next thing they're going to do is listen. The problem right now is
what I'm trying to say is, if you want to have a liberal bias and want to rewrite, as we call it, rewriting, rebalancing, changing, well, then you need to change the narrative from the basic, most fundamental peace concert that ever existed, which is the original Woodstock.
Look,
let's change the narrative on that.
Look, I find it funny because it was not just Whoopi, but even Ana Navarro and Sarah Haynes on the show were literally saying, you got to stop this. Even Ana Navarro said they were overdoing it by removing gender-specific words for the Oompa Loompa characters in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I think that this is where, if art and the literary works and whatever, we got to leave this alone, and we got to learn. But what I do love, and with this we'll end our rant for today, Stuart, kudos to some of these liberals who are finally saying, enough. You're going too far. It's time to stop. This is not right.
That's all for today. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Rant Network, or wherever you get your podcast, videocast. We're out there for you. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, gained some valuable insights. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us again next time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for a thought-provoking conversation, noon Eastern. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media. Share your thoughts with us. Private message if you don't want to be out there. We understand a lot of people are afraid of our topics and don't want to be tagged all the time, but we get it. Remember, we're always interested in hearing your views. Learning about topics is how we get them is from you guys. Next time, love you. Keep ranting, keep raving. David, time to say goodbye.
Have a good day, everyone. Cheers.